Hey everybody, this is Ken from Nippon Bro. How's it going? Hope you guys are all having a good day. Now it is Christmas week and I think I'll be posting maybe 1 or 2 more videos after this one, and then we'll call it a year. And then in 2021 we will be starting fresh. So hopefully 2021 will be well, hopefully a little better than this year, but we'll see what happens. Now today I just wanted to kind of show you guys a software that just lately came out, and they had a beta testing for a while now and it's finally come out, and that is Luminar Ai, and it is by Skylum. So I'm going to show you how the software works and how it might just improve your workflow as a photographer. So we'll get right into it. Alright, so welcome back. I want to show you Luminar Ai and just show you this entire software. Not really going through too much into detail because obviously then it'll just become a really long, maybe 2-hour video. So I'll probably break it down in some other videos in the future. But with AI technology now, with photography, it is almost a breeze with editing. Now there's a lot of speculation and debate going around with AI using in photo editing and post-production, and also just comparing it with your normal Lightroom where you kind of manually do everything. So this is where I have kind of like, I understand both sides of the argument, with people saying that, you know, using AI is basically cheating. You don't know what you're doing. You're just letting the computer do all this work and you're not really learning per se. Now I understand that. And I do agree to a sense that, you know, you should probably learn the basics of how to edit a photo, and then maybe use AI technology to just kind of, you know, if you have a client work to maybe that you have a very short time frame to deliver the actual final product, then you might want to use an AI technology to kind of get that process really quick. Now that is very possible with a software like Luminar Ai or any other AI softwares out there, but right now, this is the only software that I know that can do this to this extent, and they have perfected it. Now, as far as using Lightroom and learning all the manual configurations of how to edit a photo, I think that is also very important. And I have basically a course that I made on YouTube, which is totally free, and it's a kind of an ongoing course that you will learn the basics, and it's for beginners. So if you don't know how to use some of the sliders and what things mean within Lightroom or other editing softwares, then you will know with my course. But I'm actually curious to know, what are your thoughts on AI technology kind of getting introduced to the photography editing post-production work versus your traditional way of actually editing? I would like to know, so please comment down below and let me know your thoughts, and just have a nice conversation down there. It's Christmas, be nice to each other and don't get too mad, all right? Anyways, let's get right into it. So what I want to do is introduce you to Luminar Ai, and Skylum is the brains behind it all, and they created Luminar 4 and Luminar Ai. Luminar 4 was kind of like their preliminary, I guess I would almost say like a beta testing software, which is, you know, pretty much configured to what it was. But what they did was they limited some of the features because they were working on it with Luminar Ai, and instead of just kind of updating Luminar 4, they just went ahead and made a completely new software on top of Luminar 4, so you can have more AI configured tasks when it comes to post-processing. All right, so when I go into Luminar Ai, you're gonna see, you can watch the video trailer, which is super awesome. They made a super good trailer, so you get the idea of how everything works. And then you can go buy now. Now the price of these kind of varies. So for me, because I'm in Japan right now, everything kind of shows up with your geolocation. So right now it says for 1 seat, meaning for 1 license or 1 computer, you can pay up to, for here it's in Japanese yen, so it's just under $100 US. But also you can get Luminar X membership, which is basically a yearly subscription, and you get basically all the additional info, additional bonus features that you'll get. And there's kind of the list right here, as you see on my screen recording, and you can kind of choose if you really want to adopt for that. I didn't personally, but if you wanted to, you can. But anyways, moving right along into Luminar Ai and the actual software here, I have Luminar Ai open, and the first thing you want to do is go to this plus sign up here, and you're going to want to click on that, and you can either import an entirely new folder, or you can add by single images. Now, in this case, I've already put in a whole catalog of one of my files that has all these photos, and so that makes it super easy, so you can kind of scroll through everything and find the photos that you want to edit and don't want to edit, and maybe you want to apply the same edit to multiple different photos. So this is good if you want to open up an entire catalog. Now, besides that, what you want to do is select the photo. So for example, I'm just going to select this photo right here, and then I'm going to go templates. So what you're going to do is you're going to go kind of in order, and then the final step is exporting. But basically, when you click on templates, you are going to see templates that they suggest for you. Now, you can kind of think of this as a preset or a LUT or anything that you want to, however you want to say it, but they call it a template. And they have AI technology to basically 3D map an entire photo that is 2D on your computer and determine what is the foreground, midground, and background. So this is like the power of AI, and it's crazy. For example, right now they scan this photo and they basically determine these are the types of templates that they recommend, and you can actually just click on any of them. So you can go on urban style right here, and then they'll suggest old town. So let's see what that looks like. That changed it to that. Now, if you want to see before and after, what you can do is go to the top right here and click on this, and you'll have before and after. You can click on the middle. The cursor will change from a magnifying glass to this kind of arrow, and then you can kind of hold it and drag it back and forth, and you can see the difference there. Or otherwise, what you can do is you can click off of that, and then you can go to the eyeball here. Is when you hold on to the eyeball, it will go back to your previous unedited photo, and then when you let go of it, it'll go back to what you have put on there. And then otherwise, the other shortcut key is the backslash. So if you press on the backslash and hold it, then it goes back to before you edit it, and if you let go, you go back to your edit. Now, I'm just gonna go through these, and we're gonna go through Edinburgh, yeah, that's a little darker. Toronto, yeah, my Canadian. Okay, Melbourne, yeah, I like Melbourne. Gets a little gloomy there sometimes. Abbey Street, I don't know where that is. New York. Okay, so out of all this, I think Old Town looks pretty good. It's evenly saturated for me. So what you can do is you can select this. Now, the other thing you can do with this, what you cannot do with Lightroom or any other software that I know personally, but if you do know, comment down below. But with this, you can actually change the opacity level or how intense you want that template to be. So when you go to the bottom right here, you can see that you can just dial it down almost to the original, and then you can dial it back up just a slight touch if you wanted to, maybe halfway or all the way. At this point, I'm just gonna do all the way so we can just kind of move things along. Now, the next tab that you wanna go to is Edit. The Edit tab here is pretty self-explanatory. So if you go to your Essentials tab right here, you'll see Composition. This is where you will change the crop and how you want to crop it to maybe social media, or change the horizon level and make sure your photo is completely level. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually try to do that a little bit, maybe. I'm not sure. You can actually press on this one right here, and it's gonna auto level to, you know, whatever it thinks it will. But of course, you can go to a corner of a photo and you can change the actual leveling of a photo if you want. But I'm just gonna go auto here, press return, and you're gonna apply that composition. Now what you also wanna do is go into light, and this is where your basic controls are: your exposure, your smart contrast, your highlights, your shadows. So basically this is something that you get for Lightroom or any other software for that matter. And when you do adjust these, it actually is pretty, you know, intuitive, but also the smart contrast is something that you won't get with others. And smart contrast is basically, if you crank it all the way, it's not gonna over contrast it. Like, you can go pretty overboard with many other softwares, but with smart contrast, you can crank it both ways and it's not gonna get too distorted. And that's what I love about AI technology, is you can kind of just forget a little bit about how over processed a photo would look. I mean, you can get there if you crank everything up, but the fact is, if you aren't really used to a software, for example, and you're an intermediate level and you're kind of playing with this might be an option for you. I mean, I'm not against people using these type of softwares because it's there for you to use and you're paying for it. But again, I mean, it's always nice to know that there's softwares out like this for even professionals to be able to use, and it'll speed up their workflow. All right, so I'm not going to go too much into detail with some of these, but of course you can go enhance AI, and anything that has an AI, they basically have some type of implementation of 3D mapping on there to determine how to edit a photo, determining on the software development that they did for Luminar AI software. So when you go enhance, you can crank the enhance all the way. Is going to basically enhance everything that it thinks that needs enhancing. And then you can go sky enhancer, and you can enhance the sky even more, so it basically dehazes it a little bit if you want to translate that into Lightroom terms. And so you have that. Now you can go to structure AI, you can crank the structure all the way. It's going to make it a little bit more of that clarity look. So yeah, it's going to look a little bit more intense. Like, this is the type of look that I would want to edit if I was editing for my Instagram. So if you go onto my Instagram, you'll see a lot of these photos tend to look like this, but on recent photos I did this but with a little bit of black filter, so you're going to see a little bit more of a retro look to some of my photos on my Christmas editions. But right now I would love this. I could just probably export this and I'll be happy with it, to be honest. And you can even boost this even more, and it's going to show a little bit more sharpness in the areas that it thinks needs more sharpening. And so that's pretty much it. The other tabs are pretty self-explanatory for what they are labeled as, but the most important one that I want to show you is the creativity, and this is obviously where all the creative stuff happens, and this is really exciting. So again, with all the AI dots that you see here, this is where all the 3D mapping comes into place. Also, another thing is, if you see a marker on one of these tabs, that means something's already been edited. So that's just a marker indication that the software is telling you that you've done something here. Or when you put a template on, these are the things that has been edited. So if you want to go ahead and turn them off or re-edit them, you can. All right, so let's go to Sky AI. Sky AI is awesome. It's awesome if you are doing compositions. Now this is where a lot of people are debating on the fact of, you know, whether this is really, you know, a good thing or not, is the fact of, and some people just kind of, you know, post it on their social media and not really admit to the fact. And a lot of people think, wow, you know, how do you get this photo? You must have been like, all your photos for some reason are just perfect timing. The sky is so dramatic and everything like that. Just almost unbelievable to a point, right? So that's where I think honesty is the best policy when it comes to composition work. And composition work, all that means is when you take different types of compositions of photos and you stack them all together to make one image. And so it's not really reality of you just pointing and shooting at a location and, you know, you get what you see, that is what's presented to you. A lot of these people now are utilizing Photoshop and utilizing these type of AI softwares to make photos that are dreamlike. And that's something that isn't really reality, but it is nice to know that you can do that. So, and for me, if you're honest about it and you actually say that this is a composition photo and you have edited it, then by all means post it. At least you're honest about it. But if you're not and you're trying to fool somebody and be like, hey, I was in Bali, you know, and I put myself into that photo and stuff like that, I mean, that's something that I can't do anything about it, but I'm just against it. So that's where I'm at. But anyways, with sky replacement, this is like insane. With photoshopping, if you were to go in the back here and you were to mask all this out right here around the trees, around the rooftop here, around all these light bulbs here, and of course depending on your photo it's going to be different, but just to be able to fill all these gaps in, it's insane amount of work. I would probably take me, I don't know, maybe an hour to mask everything. With this, however, it's a click away. So if you go to, let's say, bright blue sky, and if I click on that, it's going to be blue sky. If I go, let's say, galaxy, unrealistic, but you're going to have the galaxy. And just look at the amount of masking that they did for you. And this is all throughout the trees. You got stars right here. You got stars in between the bar here. If you just let it load for a bit, there you go. You see a little bit of stars down here. So this is stuff that would take hours to do with Photoshop. And obviously it's a click away from this. Now, you can go into Augmented Sky as well. So let's zoom out here. Let's say because I have a galaxy right now, I want to put in the moon, for example. Okay, so let's put in moon 1. Now you have this. Now you have a moon in the back. Obviously, this is really unrealistic. Maybe if you're, I don't know, maybe on Jupiter, you might see something like this. But what you can do is you can go place object, and you can play around with, you know, you can rotate this. You can even shrink this to whatever size you want. And you can kind of play around with the position. And you can click off of that, change the amount. So the amount is the opacity. And then you can change the color temperature of that moon. And then you can relight it, so you can relight it depending on what the angle of where the light is coming from. So there's so much you can do with this, but just imagine if you get your own images and you want to import it in here, it's just going to drop it right in there. So this is something that's really, really cool. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna actually change the background to just something a little bit more regular. So let me just change it to one of these here, blue skies. Okay. So I'm going to choose this blue sky right here, and I'm going to take the moon out, so I don't want the augmented sky there. But what I do want to try to explain is atmosphere. Now, atmosphere is pretty cool. Again, with the 3D mapping of what Luminar AI does, what it does with, for example, for fog, let's say fog, and we turn the amount up. Now, you can crank the amount up, and right now you can kind of see that the fog is kind of near this roof right here, but it's not really going past this mid-ground. Now, if you change the depth right now and you kind of bring it forward, and you can see it's almost like unbelievable when it comes to, let's say we crank the amount up right here. Now the depth is all the way behind the building right now. Now you want to bring that fog forward. Now what you're going to do is change the depth, and you're going to increase it. And it's like, just if you play this like forward like this and back, it almost looks like those picture films. So it's pretty cool. Like you can choose, okay, I want it like behind the building, or I want it on the building. I want it a little bit more in front of the building, or I want it like really up close and mimic the fact that I'm really in a foggy place. So again, you can use atmospheric AI for that. Now, another thing is sunray. Sunray is something that's really, really cool as well. So if you click on sunray, you can go place sun, and you're gonna get this dot. You can move this dot wherever you'd like, but what I like to usually do is I like to actually crank up my amount on my sunray first, and then figure out where the sunray is gonna go. So what you can do is you can move this around. The good thing about 3D mapping here again, where it comes into advantage, is you can put the sunray behind the building, because obviously you're not gonna have the sun on top of the building ever. So it's smart. You can put it behind the building and look at the sun rays change. It's going to basically change the sun ray of where it is. And so, for example, I might want it like up here, and then you can change the overall look of it. You can brighten it up, you can darken it, and you can change the length of the actual sun rays. So maybe that's too unrealistic, maybe like that. You can do penetration, how bright you want it, and then you can change that right there. Now you can change the sun radius, you can change the number of rays, and you can change the temperature of the actual rays. So this is so much that you can do with this, but you never get this with Photoshop or any other software because they can't map a photo 3D. And this is something that Skylum has done, and they did a really, really good job of perfecting this work. Now, I don't really have a portrait photo example to show you guys, but you can go into portrait mode here, and it's basically gonna detect any faces within the photo, whether you have 10 people, 20 people, 1 person, 2 person, doesn't really matter. It's gonna figure it out. And then once it recognizes it, it's going to edit only the face. So this is like what your current beauty app on your phone can do, but now it's on a software on a computer, just like you would on Lightroom or anything else. You can remove blemishes like pimples and scars and whatnot, and you can, let's say if you have the same subject in 100 of your photos. Well, let's say you remove the pimple from a person. Now, what you can do is if you take the same person in a bunch of photos, then what you can do is just copy that and paste it on all of them, and it's going to basically remove pimples for every single photo, and you don't have to do that manually. It's just super incredible what AI can do, and this is why I think it is really good for even professionals to use, because it just speeds up the workflow. I mean, you know, if you set aside your egos for how you learn stuff and how much you spent on learning things, and this AI system just doing it and making people's lives easier, well, the fact is, if it makes your life easier, if it makes my life easier, I'm all for it. Because I still know the basics, and that's the thing. I still know the basics. I know how to still use Lightroom and other editing softwares and how to grade actual photos. But if you are in a crunch time, your client wants a fast turnaround, 2-day turnaround, and you have 1,000 photos, well, here you go. Here's a solution. And honestly, for under $100 to be able to do this, and you're getting paid thousands of dollars from your clients, well, you're going to get your money's worth really quick. All right, so again, probably a software that you don't really need to buy if you're just an avid photographer, that you're just kind of going around and shooting and not really caring about too much about doing certain types of edits. But if you are a little bit more serious, taking on client work, or you just have a really compassionate feeling for photography and being more creative with your work, and you want to increase that creative spark in your workflow, get Luminar AI and you should be good to go. So that is it for today's video. So if you guys like this video, smash the like button and turn on those notification bells for future videos. And if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe, because it will help me out a lot. And you might want to learn more things about like this programs, because I am constantly on the search for looking for anything that makes my life easier as a photographer, as a videographer, cinematographer. So anyways, I will see you guys on the next one, and you guys take it easy, okay? Peace out.